Alrighty then, here we are at the final episode. This is the Demon Souls Compendium information for the worlds, the backstory to the worlds, and also to some of the major characters in the game. This isn't by me, this isn't from me. I'll post a link to the Compendium if you want to look into it yourself. I'm just going to go over the stuff that I thought was interesting that I wanted to go over with you guys. So, gonna start off with Chapter 1, World History. I actually skipped a little bit ahead over the intro, which explains pretty much what the Monumental explains to us in the intro, so I'm going straight into the worlds themselves, so the Boletarian Palace, the Stonefang Tunnel, all that stuff, so... Alright, so World 1. The Boletarian Palace became home to the might of 2 fire-breathing dragons and 3 heroes of Boletaria transformed by the demonic fog. The kingdom was once privileged to house its finest heroes, Alfred, the Knight of the Tower, Mentos, the Knight of the Lance, and Longbow Ulan, who commanded a legion of archers. So that's where Fangs comes from, that's where the Tower Knight comes from, and that's where the Penetrator comes from. Mentos is the Penetrator, Alfred is the Tower Knight, and Ulan is the head of the Phalanx group, so... Their physical bodies were twisted and distorted into demonic entities while their souls remained to guard the pathway leading to their false king, a demonic embodiment of the true King Aland. And that's pretty much it for the Boletarian Palace. So, moving on to World 2. Stonefang Tunnel was an excavation site under the control of King Aland. The miners who devoted their lives to the soldiers of Boletaria remained stubborn in their fruitless efforts to support the king, and rather than attempt to flee when the fog approached, I'm gonna screw this up so badly. They remained behind. Now devoid of sentience and soul, they mindlessly continue to chisel away at the tunnels. The caves create a maze-like system beneath the excavation ground worthy of its name, the Tunnel City. Rumors of the tunnels sitting on the shrine of an ancient dragon are abound. The ancestors of the excavators were said to have worshipped and revered the dragon as a god. At its core sits a temple devoted to the fire demon whose flames are said to be the very essence from which blacksmithing was begun. Alright, so that's it for Stonefang Tunnel. And moving on to World 3, the Taraflatras. This is an interesting one. This is probably one of my favorites. The Tower of Latria was a shrine devoted to the Ivory Queen in the lands neighboring Boletaria with her husband. Latria ruled her kingdom, encompassing a penitentiary, a church, and the great tower itself, to the great adoration and respect of her people. Latria banished her husband from the land for unknown reasons, and when the fog bathed the kingdom, Latria's husband found himself filled with a terrible and vengeful lust. He soon discovered the source of his mad desires, a beautiful and flowing golden garb that seemed to beckon his name. When he put the robe on, a rage filled within him. The old man returned and ordered his wife exiled from her own kingdom and her family imprisoned in the cells Latria formerly governed. In each cell block, the old man commanded inhuman guards to keep watch over the tortured prisoners for eternity. He oversaw the construction of an idol made in his wife's image to give false hope to the inmates, and with the masses of flesh accumulated throughout the years, the old man has begun creating his own army of demons. Among them, the ravenous man-eaters. Suspended from the middle of the tower is a large mechanical heart, constructed in an effort to help maintain the old man's own existence. The souls of the damned inside of the prisoner used as life-giving sustenance to keep the heart beating. In time, the old man's body began to wither and decay, and the golden garb, the true source of the old man's demonic rage, beckoned a new host. With the old man rid of the robe's life force, he breathed his last gasp of air. For a complete transcript of the former royal wife's dialogue, see here, blah blah blah. Alright, that was just a little tidbit afterwards if you want to check out the former royal's wife's dialogue, all that stuff. Anyways, so that's it for World 3, Tower of Latria. So basically, the queen, the Fool's Idol was made in the image of the queen, and I guess the king, or her husband, he came back to the land after being exiled he came back with the golden garb and sort of took over the place and turned it into a prison for all the royal people and the families who lived there first. So, pretty crazy story there. And also the mechanical heart. I guess it was mechanical. It was filled with face bugs. I don't know how it all works, but crazy stuff. Anyways, World 4. The Shrine of Storms was an isolated land where pagans would go to worship the god of storms, and where legends of fallen heroes were mourned. The colorless fog released a flood of souls from the many catacombs, which soon found hosts in the skeletal remains littered across the island. Tales of great pagan deities and Boltarian folklore gave birth to reality, as the shrine is now home to a fiction made flesh, Adjudicator. The great judge of the deceased awaits Adjudicator, the great judge of the deceased, awaits the passing of a new hero to begin the process of purification before the soul is given up as a sacrifice to the great Storm King, a mighty beast that soars high above the island's ancestral burial grounds. Burial ground. The Storm King himself is merely an embodiment of the ideas of an ancient pagan civilization given corporeal form by the colorless fog. Deep inside the ruins of the Shrine of Storms is a burial ground devoted to the legend of a great and nameless hero who now blindly continues his lust for power and fame. He is well a legend of a distant generation perpetuated by the pagan rituals. That's really interesting, actually. So technically, the Shrine of Storms kind of is like this wonderland of, folklore given flesh and kind of all this fantasy stuff come to life. I really like that idea. That's pretty cool. Alright, and lastly, well, not lastly, but almost, World 5. The Valley of Defilement is a wretched home for the abused and neglected citizens of Boletaria, a dumping ground for the kingdom's unholy. The valley became notorious as a place where one could leave a fetus of an unwanted child to rot in the festering swamps. Hearing of the valley's dreadful circumstance, the sixth Saint Estrella took it upon herself, and along with her companion girl Vinland, traveled there in hopes of freeing the depraved souls consumed by the fog. The mindless drones that now remain in the valley will violently attack any who threaten them in hopes of claiming souls to offer up to the Great Maiden, who showed them compassion. In the deepest pits of the valley are born two vile demons out of the putrilage and plague that lingers in the deadly bog. It is said that Estrella pledged herself to the will of a demon soul to help ease the pain of the suffering, rather than to accept the aid of a cruel god who would allow such a place to exist. And finally, World 6, the Northern Lands. The Northern Lands were once home to a race of mighty giants. They lived in relative peace with the rest of Boletaria until the thick, colorless fog swept in and blanketed their domain. The Northern Lands were the first to succumb to the spread of demons, and in an effort to contain the madness, Boletaria sent hundreds of thousands of its finest knights to the Great Kingdom to fend off the threat. The effort was for naught, and the archstone connecting to this land was later destroyed as a last-ditch attempt to contain the chaos. It did not succeed. So that's basically why we can't explore World 6 right up there on the top right. That's why it's shattered. Because before we even got here, it was pretty much completely forsaken and lost to the demons, so... Okay, so that's it for the worlds, and we're just going to do chapter 2. This is the only other chapter I went and got stuff from. There's also, like, important items, that kind of thing, but we're just going to go on ahead with worlds and characters, so... Starting off with the Maiden in Black. The Maiden in Black is said to have once been one of the most powerful demons in existence. Her certain ability to harness and manipulate the souls of the player character certainly seems interesting. She maintains a direct communication with the Old One and is even able to lull it back to sleep should the character accept her offer, making her considerably more powerful than it. The Monumental. We're on the next one. The Monumental. The Monumental is the last surviving harbinger of its kind. They are a vessel race endowed only with prophetic knowledge and lacking all consequence of emotion or personal thought. It seeks to aid the adventurer into lulling the Old One back to sleep. Next we have Saint Urbain. Saint Urbain is a pilgrim of God and a devout believer in miracles. He puts his faith in his Lord that prayer and worship will rid Boletaria of the demons. He has many followers, few of which accompany him in the Nexus. Now we have Sage Frake the Visionary. Sage Frake the Visionary is a powerful spell user who has devoted his entire research to further understanding the soul arts, a dark magic born out of the Old One's demonic presence. He is at odds with Saint Urbain and believes the devout priest is worshipping a false god. Sometimes his lust for souls is greater than his desire to learn more about the soul arts. There is great evidence to support the theory that the god in which Saint Urbain and his followers believe does not actually exist, but instead is a divinely twisted version of the Old One itself. The Talisman of God states that it was crafted in the image of God, whereas the Talisman of Beasts was crafted in the image of the Old One. Moreover, the info page for the Talisman of Beasts clearly states that the symbol of God was nothing more than the image of the Old One. So that's a little bit of an interesting bit of trivia there. Next we have Bior of the Twin Fangs. Bior of the Twin Fangs is the eldest member of the King's elite duo known as the Twin Fangs. When the second half, Valorfax fled the kingdom and escaped the fog to warn the rest of the world of Boletaria's plight, Bior stayed behind to defend the honor of the true King Alant. He soon found himself at a great disadvantage against the kingdom's new demonic inhabitants. He possesses great wisdom and knowledge about Boletaria and an undying devotion to the real king, which he valiantly shows while aiding the player in battle. Alright, now we have Yuria the Witch. Yuria the Witch is a practitioner of a darker form of soul arts, the likes of which are often looked down upon with great disdain by Urbain and the community. She was imprisoned by King Alant's personal executioner, Meralda, and left under the watchful eye of one of the king's deformed jesters. So that's the fat officials. Next up we have Yurt the Silent Chief, pretty short for this one. Yurt the Silent Chief is a deadly assassin whose only business in Boletaria is to aid in the misdeeds of his accomplice, the enigmatic Mephistopheles, and kill all those who have learned the ways of the soul arts. Mephistopheles is a grim woman with a deadly secret. She seeks the assistance of Yurt, and later the player, if Yurt is killed, and wishes the death of key NPCs in the Nexus, specifically those with knowledge of the soul arts. Upon completion of her requests, Mephistopheles will say that the Order of the Soul has commanded her to remove all those who know the ways of the soul arts from Boletaria, the player included, in order to keep the ancient rite a secret. Ostrava of Boletaria is the Prince of Boletaria, whose real name is Ariona Alant. He is one of the earliest encountered NPCs in the game, and the most frequently encountered throughout the entirety of World 1. Ostrava seeks counsel with his father, the king, but quickly learns of the demonic farce that now sits on the throne. Overcome with grief and betrayal, Ostrava kills himself at the foot of his father's palace, offering his belongings up to you. Through various conversations the player can have with Ostrava in the game, he reveals that the mighty Twin Fang Valorfax ventured back through the fissure into Boletaria after warning the world. This might be considered an inconsistency or an error on part of the developers. Ostrava actually says that Bior was the one who escaped through the fissure and that Valorfax wasn't ever seen again, when in fact you see firsthand that it was the other way around. Depending on how you interpret this, can change your opinion on the state of Valorfax's existence. Then they have a complete transcript of Ostrava's dialogue. Oops, went a little bit too far. Old King Doran. Also known as the Last Hero, he is a demigod of the ancient past and the founder of Boletaria, locked away by the false king inside a great shrine which houses one of the kingdom's most holiest of treasures, the Demon Brand. The player receives the key to unlock and free Old King Doran from Ostrava's corpse, and thus can challenge Doran to a duel for the right to claim the Demon Brand. Executioner Meralda is King Alant's personal henchwoman and a stain on the Boletarian kingdom. She is notorious for her brutality and lack of compassion, and has an unyielding devotion to the king, even in his current demonic misrepresentation. She successfully managed to imprison both Yuria and Bior, leaving the nature of her devotion and power in question. It was once believed that Valorfax of the Twin Fangs had ventured back through the fissure and returned to Boletaria to aid Bior, but that he was captured and killed by Executioner Meralda. Speculation arose when players discovered a set of brushwood armor in the dungeon where one encounters Meralda. Many had assumed that since he was a member of the duo known as the Twin Fangs, both members would share matching armor sets. While still likely true, this has recently been put under skepticism when, upon further examination, it's revealed that the armor set is not, in fact, exclusive to the elite group, but was once formerly the traditional armor of the Boletarian royal family. However, the Ring of Great Strength is exclusive to the duo, leading the players to now assume that Valorfax, still having returned to Boletaria, did not die by the hands of Meralda, but was killed by the dragon at their nest, where players can find several charred corpses, and most importantly, a Ring of Great Strength. That's where we found it. Okay, I thought it was actually the area in 1-4, but it's actually right in 1-1 at the dragon's nest. One of those charred corpses that we got the Ring of Great Strength off of. That's supposedly supposed to be Valorfax's corpse. So when he returned to Boletaria, he made it to the dragon's nest and was killed, unfortunately. So anyways, Lord Ridiel is among... Oh no, whoops, getting ahead of myself again. Scurvir the Wanderer is a plunderer who entered Boletaria through the fog in hopes of pillaging the riches of the deceased, but found himself trapped in the deep mineshaft of the Stonefang tunnels. That's all they have to say about him. Lord Ridiel is among the many prisoners in Latria, put there by the possessed old man. Ridiel is a phantom in great desperation to retrieve a precious artifact from his corpse. It is said that he is sometimes referred to as Little Lant, causing great speculation about his connection to both the king and Ostrava. Slain Vinland is sister to Garl Vinland, Maiden Estrea's bodyguard. She ventured into the Valley of Defilement in hopes of finding her brother, but has taken refuge in the swamps, unable to discover his whereabouts. It is from her that the player learns of the valley's wretched past of being a dumping ground for aborted children. Garl Vinland is Maiden Estrea's loyal bodyguard and companion, and speculatively a lover as well. So yeah, as I said before, it's a theory that they might be lovers, but that doesn't mean that connects to the whole plague babies thing. That doesn't have anything to do with it. He followed Estrella into the valley to carry out her will of bringing peace to the suffering. He protects her with his life and has gone to great lengths to keep himself and her safe from pillaging adventures. It is said that Maiden Estrella discovered the truth about God's existence, or lack thereof, and thus explains why she expected the soul of a demon in order to ease the troubled abandoned. Hers is ironically referred to as the most impure soul, yet still, Garl will never leave her side. For complete blah blah blah, and they talk about the transcript for Garl and Estrella's dialogue. They actually have some really interesting dialogue, like, I don't know what Garl says if you kill Maiden Estrella before him, if anything. I don't know exactly what happens with that. And the other one is, if you get knocked off the cliff up on sort of the cliff face, if you get knocked off of there into the plague pool with all the plague babies, I think Garl Vinland basically kind of taunts you and he tells you can rot down in the plague swamp and blah 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 blah, you know, leave us be and such. So that's them. Next we have Master Satsuki, is a mysterious man who encountered in the Shrine of Storms, whose primary goal is to find the legendary katana known as the magic sword Makoto. We weren't able to show that off. That's one of the other weapons I wasn't able to show off because I've never really gotten it on either file. Unfortunately, I apologize for that. Named after a giant in a distant country, referring to the magic sword Makoto. His demeanor is that of one who cannot be trusted, and if given the blade he so desires, his intention may not... let me start that over. Who cannot be trusted, and if given the blade he so desires, his intention may not be to let the player leave his sight alive. Little else is known about him, so not a whole lot of story behind him. Alfred, Mentos, and Ulan were the heroes of Boletaria and the king's most prized warriors. When the deep fog settled in, Alfred was transformed into the Tower Knight, Mentos into Penetrator, and Ulan, including his army, into Phalanx. I'm not sure if Ulan is a he or a she. Including his army into Phalanx. While the game engenders Ulan as a male, The player encounters a female Black Phantom archer in 1-4 among the Black Phantom representations of Alfred and Mentos. One can assume, then, that she is simply a symbol of Ulan's army at large and not Ulan himself. Okay, alright. I dig it. Alright, moving on, we have Blacksmith Ed and Blacksmith Baldwin are the two blacksmiths in the game able to repair or forge weapons for the player. They once lived in the Stonefang region, and Ed still operates from within the tunnels. Legend states that an old hero nicknamed the legendary Big M established his reputation when he punched a dragon to death, and in his honor, the hands of God were crafted. Blacksmith Ed drops these weapons if killed. I actually have to take a short break from the reading right now to show you the weapon description for the Hands of God, if I can. So it'd be in the blunt weapons section. Alright. A fist weapon bearing God's name. There was once a strong man who slaughtered dragons with his bare hands. His godlike fists earned him the title of the legendary Big M. So there's that. It's official Demon Souls information, guys. Oh yeah, good stuff. Alright, continuing on. Stockpile Thomas is a widower whose family was killed during the setting in of the Deep Fog. His wife and daughter were either slain or turned into demons, but Thomas, unwilling to dwell on the past, has made his home in the Nexus and is willing to store any and all the items the player is carrying. Sparkly the Crow. This is the final one. Sparkly the Crow is a non-traditional merchant that can be found, though never visibly seen, in 4-1. Approaching the tree in which she is perched will trigger her dialogue, allowing the player to trade items to her in return for something usually of higher value. It's interesting to note that one of the items you can trade to her is the phosphorescent pole, which, as is discussed in the artifacts section, is an item that Lord Riel infamously stole from the Witch of the Sky. Speculatively, the crow may very well be this witch. So that's a bit of an interesting theory there. I never actually showed off all the stuff you can give to Sparkly the Crow to get stuff, but I think it's more or less, you can get some colorless demon souls, stones of ephemeral eyes, you can get white arrows or holy arrows, I forget which one. You can get arrows if you trade certain items, like I think Soul Remains might give you white arrows. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I was kind of disappointed that they didn't have a section dedicated to Maiden Astraea, although I guess Garl Vinland's section kind of just ties them both together. Regardless, that is pretty much it. I'll put a link in the description to the Compendium if you want to read further. If this interested you at all, if it bored the crap out of you, then, you know, you don't have to, but I'm just going to put it there for reference if you guys want to see it. Again, I didn't write it, it's not mine. Credit to the dude who wrote it. Let me just find it here. I know I have it written down somewhere. Okay, the Compendium was written by ArsenicKnife's, and I think he was helped by a few other people. Or actually, I don't know if he was. He might have just done this himself. I think he actually did just do this himself. Yeah, this was all the effort of ArsenicKnife's on PSN, so big props to him for writing this. This was actually a pretty interesting read for me. I learned some stuff I didn't actually know. I just skimmed through it the first time, so that was all just me reading that. Most of that for the first time, so I hope you guys found that interesting. Wow, I actually was able to fit that into 25 minutes, but yeah, so I hope you were able to weather the 25 minutes of me talking about Demon Souls lore. I'm gonna let you guys go now, and I'm going to finish this LP up right here and right now, so I hope you all enjoyed. Dark Souls comes out tonight at 12 midnight. I'm not going to be getting it until tomorrow afternoon, but possibly expect some Dark Souls videos in the future. I don't think I'm going to start up another LP until Wind Waker is over, but either way, this has been Demon Souls, this has been Quaddy, and I'll see y'all next time.